Why ancient Romans ate this every single day. In the center of one of the greatest empires the world has ever known, there was something that most people would never associate with power. Not gold, not marble, not wine, but grain. Simple grain. Wheat, barley, oats. The basic crops that quietly sustained millions of lives across the Roman world. When we imagine ancient Rome, we often picture grand architecture, military conquest, and political drama. The Colosseum, the legions, the emperors. But behind all of it, beneath the monuments and above the politics, there was something far more fundamental holding everything together. Food. And more specifically, a very simple daily meal built around grain. To understand Rome is not only to understand its armies or its laws. It is to understand what its people ate every single day. Because empires are not only built through power, they are sustained through nutrition, through supply, through the quiet, repetitive act of feeding millions of people. For the average Roman citizen, especially in the early centuries of the Republic and Empire, food was not about luxury. It was about survival. Most people did not eat elaborate meals. They did not enjoy rare spices or exotic dishes. Their diet was simple, predictable, and heavily dependent on grain. One of the most common daily foods was a thick porridge known as pulse, made by boiling crushed grains in water, sometimes with a little salt, sometimes with herbs, occasionally with vegetables or cheese if available. It was not glamorous. It was not celebrated, but it was essential, because it provided energy, and energy meant survival. In many ways, pulse was the foundation of Roman daily life. Farmers ate it before going into the fields. Workers ate it before construction. Soldiers ate it before marching long distances. Even children grew up eating it as a staple. It was everywhere, and it shaped everything. To modernize, it may seem too simple to matter, but simplicity is exactly what made it powerful. Because it could be produced in massive quantities. It could be stored. It could be transported. And it could feed large populations efficiently. Rome did not grow into an empire because it had rare foods. It grew because it had reliable food. And grain was the most reliable resource of all. The Roman state understood this very clearly. Controlling grain supply was not just an agricultural concern. It was a political necessity. Entire regions of the empire were dedicated to producing and transporting grain to feed Rome itself. Egypt, North Africa, Sicily. These regions became essential breadbaskets of the empire. Ships carried enormous quantities of grain across the Mediterranean Sea. These shipments were carefully managed, protected, and distributed. Because if the grain supply failed, the city of Rome itself could become unstable. Food scarcity could lead to unrest, and unrest could threaten political power. So grain was not just food. It was control. It was stability. It was the foundation of governance. At the center of this system was the daily consumption of simple grain-based meals. Families in Rome would often begin their day early, before sunrise. Bread baking in communal ovens, porridge simmering in pots, the smell of grain and heat filling narrow streets. Life in the city moved quickly, but food remained constant. Even as emperors changed, even as wars were fought, even as borders expanded and contracted, people still returned to the same basic meal, every day, without fail. This consistency created something important: reliability. And reliability is what allowed a massive population to function. Soldiers on distant frontiers depended on grain shipments from across the empire. Workers building roads, aqueducts, and temples depended on simple meals that could sustain long hours of labor. Families raising children depended on affordable food that was always available. Without grain, none of it would have been possible. And yet, despite its importance, grain was rarely celebrated. It was too ordinary, too familiar, too constant. History tends to remember emperors, battles, and monumental events. But what truly sustained Rome was repetition. The daily act of feeding people. day after day, year after year, generation after generation. And at the center of that repetition was a simple bowl of grain. Pulse. Unchanging. Dependable. Quietly powerful. It is easy to overlook something that never changes. But in Rome, stability was everything. And grain provided it. The empire did not survive because of occasional greatness. It survived because of daily necessity. Because millions of people needed to eat. And because the system that fed them worked. Even today, it is difficult to fully grasp the scale of this. Rome was not a small city-state. It was a vast network of interconnected regions, cultures, languages, and economies. And yet, across all of it, a single principle remained consistent. People needed food.